Lake Oroville's 23-foot mystery is terrifying scientists right now, because what just happened at California's largest reservoir should be impossible. December 19th, 2:17 in the morning, complete darkness, not a single cloud in the sky, no storms, no rain, no warning. And then the water started rising. 7 billion gallons exploded upward from below in just 4 hours. By sunrise, the shoreline had moved 60 feet inland. Park benches that sat 10 feet above the surface were completely underwater. But here is what has experts in complete panic. When they tested the water, they found chemical signatures that should not exist. Lithium levels were 4 times higher than normal. Rare earth metals that form only miles beneath the surface. This water did not fall from the sky. It surged up from deep underground, pushed by forces no one can explain. And the timing? Seismic monitors detected earthquakes at the exact moment the surge began. This is the same dam that nearly collapsed in 2017, forcing 188,000 people to run for their lives. The dam failure that almost happened then could be imminent now, because this geological nightmare is reaching its peak. The concrete has started singing. Engineers are detecting sounds they have never heard before. Is Lake Oroville sitting on top of a geological miracle that could end California's drought forever? Or is something beneath the surface about to crack wide open? December 19th, 2:17 in the morning, Pacific Standard Time. A monitoring station on the east side of Lake Oroville logs a reading that should not exist in the real world. Water elevation measures 847.3 feet. Nothing unusual. Nothing alarming. But within minutes, the numbers start climbing without explanation. The overnight technician stares at his screen as the gauge ticks upward. 848 feet, 850 feet, 855 feet. He checks the radar. Clear skies across the entire Feather River watershed. No precipitation anywhere. No storms approaching. No logical explanation. By 6 in the morning, the elevation reads 870.1 feet. A 23-foot rise in under 4 hours. No person working at this dam has ever witnessed such a massive gain in such a compressed window of time. The numbers are impossible, yet they keep climbing. The control room erupts into controlled chaos as staff cross-reference 3 independent monitoring systems. The California Data Exchange Center confirms the impossible curve. Backup sensors validate the primary readings. Even manual measurement tools match the digital numbers within 2 inches. This is not a computer malfunction. This is real. When the sun finally breaks over the Sierra Nevada mountains, field crews rush to the eastern shore to see the evidence with their own eyes. What they find defies every protocol in their emergency response manual. The water line has moved inland by more than 60 feet since midnight. The intake tower, which normally stands surrounded by exposed rock and dry earth, now has waves lapping against its lower platform. Park benches that sat 10 feet above the surface are completely submerged. Engineers immediately begin eliminating possibilities. Radar shows no storm systems anywhere in Northern California. Upstream reservoirs report stable levels with 0 emergency releases. Seismic stations detect no landslides crashing into the water. Satellite imagery reveals no debris field, no displacement, no visible explanation. Every normal trigger has been ruled out. Yet the water continues rising anyway. A senior supervisor scribbles a single note that launches a statewide emergency. The shoreline has moved. This is not a computer error. Lake Oroville is not just another reservoir sitting in the mountains. It is the central artery of the State Water Project, the largest public water distribution system on the entire planet. The reservoir holds 3.5 million acre-feet of water behind a concrete wall that stands 770 feet tall. From this single point, a network of canals, aqueducts, and pipelines stretches from the Sacramento Valley all the way south to the Mexican border. More than 27 million Californians depend on the water that flows through these gates every single day. That is nearly 70% of the state's population relying on one lake. The farms across the Central Valley receive irrigation allocations based entirely on how high the water sits in this one reservoir. When Oroville drops, crop production across thousands of square miles gets cut. When it rises, agriculture expands. The wine industry in Napa and Sonoma, the dairy operations in the San Joaquin Valley, the produce farms feeding grocery stores from coast to coast. All of them trace their water supply back to this single body of water. Every foot the water moves up or down represents millions of gallons and billions of dollars in economic activity. The hydroelectric power plants buried inside the dam generate enough electricity to supply 800,000 homes. The turbines spin day and night, converting falling water into energy that keeps lights on from the Bay Area to Los Angeles. If those turbines stop, the state's electrical grid struggles to compensate. If the dam itself fails, the consequences extend far beyond California's borders. To put it in simple terms, Lake Oroville is the beating heart of California. When this lake acts strangely, the entire state holds its breath. This is not a local crisis. This is a single point of failure for water security, food production, and power generation across the most populous state in America. Engineers describe managing Oroville as walking a tightrope in the dark. One misstep, one miscalculation, one unexplained surge that overwhelms the infrastructure. Millions of people downstream face catastrophic flooding. This mystery is not just about water, it is about survival. The scars from February 2017 have never truly healed for the communities living in the shadow of Lake Oroville. That winter, relentless atmospheric rivers pushed the reservoir toward maximum capacity. Engineers activated the main spillway to release pressure and prevent the dam from overtopping. Within hours, a catastrophic failure began unfolding in real time. A giant crater opened in the concrete spillway. Chunks of cement the size of cars tumbled down the hillside. Water roared through the breach, carving away earth and infrastructure that had stood for half a century. Desperate to stop the erosion, operators switched to the emergency spillway. An earthen hillside that had never been tested with actual water began to wash away immediately. Engineers watched in horror as the water ate backwards toward the dam itself, threatening to undercut the entire structure. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, on February 12th, authorities issued evacuation orders for 188,000 residents. It was the largest dam evacuation in United States history. Families grabbed whatever they could carry and fled. Traffic jammed on Highway 70 as entire towns emptied in chaos. Children were separated from parents in the panic. Elderly residents were stranded without transportation. Emergency shelters filled beyond capacity within hours as thousands arrived with nothing but the clothes on their backs. The crisis ended only after engineers released massive volumes of water and completed emergency repairs under impossible conditions. But the fear never left. For Maria Santos and thousands like her, the sound of sirens at 3 o'clock in the morning still triggers immediate panic. She remembers running through darkness with her daughter Sophia, not knowing if they would have a home to return to. Trust in authorities shattered that night and has never been rebuilt. When the gauges started climbing this time without any explanation, those old terrors returned faster than any official statement could calm them. The memories came flooding back before the water did. The past is not past when you live in the shadow of the dam. The Department of Water Resources activated emergency protocols before noon. Water samples were rushed to an independent laboratory in sealed containers marked with chain of custody barcodes. Technicians began testing immediately, running samples through conductivity meters and turbidity sensors. Then the chemical analysis results started appearing on computer screens. The numbers made no sense. Lithium concentrations measured 4 times higher than normal lake water. Boron levels spiked beyond expected ranges, matching signatures typically found only in deep geothermal zones, where underground temperatures reach extreme levels. Rare earth metals appeared in the samples. Analysis indicated this water had been in contact with bedrock deep beneath the surface for tens of years, possibly longer. The chemicals were telling a story that the gauges could not explain. A second round of testing focused on isotope analysis, examining the molecular fingerprints of the water itself. The oxygen isotope ratios did not match precipitation patterns from the Sierra Nevada mountains. The mineral compositions revealed formations that only occur under conditions of intense heat and pressure, conditions that exist miles below the surface. The conclusion became unavoidable. This water did not fall from clouds. It surged upward from deep underground sources. Seismologists reviewing earthquake data from the previous 48 hours discovered a critical connection. A cluster of microquakes registered directly beneath the eastern section of Lake Oroville. The tremors measured small on the Richter scale, barely detectable without sensitive instruments. But the timing proved impossible to dismiss. The seismic activity began at the exact moment the water started rising. Geological maps from decades earlier showed fault line systems and rock fractures beneath the lake bed. These natural pathways can connect deep aquifers to the surface. When small earthquakes shift rock formations, the cracks widen. If pressure in underground reservoirs exceeds pressure at the lake bottom, water surges upward through newly opened channels. The pathways need only expand by fractions of an inch for billions of gallons to flow. But critical questions remained unanswered. Where exactly is the water entering? How long will the flow continue? Scientists cannot see through solid rock. Inside the walls of any earthen dam, an invisible threat can begin without warning. Engineers call it piping. Water finds a microscopic pathway through soil or concrete and starts carrying away tiny particles of sediment. The channel widens slowly over time. By the time erosion becomes visible on the exterior, the internal damage can be catastrophic and irreversible. This process happens where no human eye can detect it, until the structure reaches its breaking point. Dam safety inspectors at Oroville discovered alarming signs during their emergency assessment. Cloudy water emerged from drainage systems built into the dam's foundation. The discoloration suggested sediment was being transported through channels that should be completely clear. Pressure sensors embedded deep within the structure showed readings that did not match normal operational parameters. Some instruments registered numbers that had not appeared since the terrifying days of February 2017. The timing felt too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Engineers who specialize in dam failure analysis know this pattern intimately. The Teton Dam in Idaho collapsed in 1976 when internal piping eroded a pathway through its earthen core. Over 2,000 people lost their lives in Italy when authorities ignored early warnings of structural compromise. A dam in Uzbekistan failed in 2020 through the same mechanism. In every case, warning signs appeared early. In every case, officials delayed action too long. The crisis demanded independent verification. An outside engineer arrived with no connection to the Department of Water Resources and no institutional pressure to downplay the danger. She ordered deployment of high-frequency hydroacoustic sensors that use sound waves to create three-dimensional maps of subsurface water movement. Sensitive pressure transducers were installed along the concrete face and within the deep earthen foundations. The instruments were designed to detect the subtle breath of the structure itself. But scientific data moves at a human pace, requiring days for processing and analysis. The lake, governed only by gravity and relentless underground pressure, does not wait. It continues its steady, silent ascent, inching higher against gray concrete every hour. Maria Santos stands at her kitchen window, hands gripping a cold cup of coffee she forgot to drink hours ago. She watches as the waterline claims another foot of the gravel bank that separates her property from Lake Oroville. For Maria, this is not just a weather event or a technical anomaly. It is a haunting repetition of history. She lived through the evacuation in 2017. It was a chaotic nightmare when sirens screamed through the canyon for hours. That sound still lives in the back of her throat, ready to emerge at any moment. Her neighbor's wooden dock, once a gathering place for summer barbecues and 4th of July celebrations, now sits completely underwater. Only the top railing remains visible above the churning surface. The access road leading to the local marina is no longer a road at all. It has transformed into a slurry of thick gray mud and debris, cutting off the lower neighborhoods from the main highway. When Maria calls the emergency management line, the voice on the other end sounds polite but detached. They tell her they are monitoring the situation. She hangs up and looks at her grandchildren playing on the living room rug. Her grandchildren are unaware of the danger rising outside. She tells her family they are not going to wait for a government siren this time. She begins methodically packing family photo albums, birth certificates, and heirlooms into plastic waterproof bins. Her trust in local leadership eroded long ago, washed away by previous broken promises of safety. For families like hers, being perpetually ready to run has become a grim necessity. Go bags sit stacked by the mudroom door. Trucks stay fueled with full tanks. Children know evacuation routes by heart. Further downstream, the ecology buckles under invisible strain. The water turns thick and opaque brown, choked with silt and runoff. This turbidity becomes a death sentence for the local salmon population. Fine sediment coats the gravel beds where fish spawn, suffocating the next generation before it can hatch. Even more disturbing, The violent water movement stirs up legacy toxins. Mercury and lead from old mining operations rise from the lake bottom, where they sat dormant for decades. When science cannot provide immediate answers, people construct their own explanations. Fueled by fear and silence from official press conferences, rumors spread faster than data. Some believe a massive ancient sea lies trapped deep beneath the Sierra Nevada mountains, an ancient reservoir sealed away for millions of years. They say recent microquakes were not minor tremors, but the sound of stone floors cracking under immense pressure, finally allowing ancient water to spray upward like a fountain into the lake. That would explain the unusual minerals and elevated lithium concentrations that do not match any historical records of the watershed. Other theories point directly at human interference. Persistent rumors describe secret government tunnels being built deep inside the mountains for high-speed transportation or catastrophe-proof military bases. Some say an industrial drill accidentally pierced a high-pressure underground river, and that authorities are covering up the error by presenting it as a natural event. The surge happened at night, when no witnesses were watching. Unmarked military vehicles have been spotted patrolling the eastern arm of the lake. The most scientifically credible wild theory suggests a volcanic pipe awakening beneath Oroville. Heat signatures in recent water samples hint at something cooking deep and dark. If a magma pocket is moving miles underground, it could act like a piston, pushing ancient groundwater upward through fissures directly into the reservoir. Without definitive answers from officials, silence fills every conversation, from coffee shops to emergency management offices. The silence breeds fear, and fear breeds theories that grow wilder by the hour. As the sun sets over Lake Oroville, casting long shadows across the water, the surface rises another 6 inches. There is no wind, yet the lake remains agitated. Small white-capped peaks appear as if something massive is breathing just beneath. The concrete dam has begun to sing. Engineers describe hearing a high-pitched acoustic emission, a sound they usually associate with microscopic stress fractures forming deep within the structure. But this sound feels different, melodic, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat pulsing through 770 feet of concrete and steel. 7 billion gallons of ancient pressurized mystery now press against a structure built 50 years ago, using the mathematics of a world we thought we understood. The engineers who designed this dam never accounted for water surging up from below. They calculated for rain, for snowmelt, for atmospheric rivers battering the surface from above. They never imagined the Earth itself would become the threat. No dam in history has survived a surge like this without a clear cause. No precedent exists in any engineering manual for what happens when an underground reservoir decides to empty itself into a man-made lake sitting hundreds of feet above. The textbooks offer no guidance. The simulations never modeled this scenario. The safety protocols assume threats come from the sky, not from the depths beneath. Every hour that passes adds more pressure to a system already pushed beyond its design limits. The sensors embedded in the concrete continue transmitting data that engineers struggle to interpret. The water continues rising at a pace that defies every natural explanation. The fault lines beneath the lakebed continue shifting in patterns that seismologists have never documented before. Downstream, 27 million people go about their daily lives. They drink water that flows from this reservoir. They eat food grown by farms that depend on these allocations. They flip light switches connected to turbines spinning inside this dam. Most of them have no idea what is building up behind that concrete wall right now. Most of them have never heard the dam sing. The communities in the shadow of Lake Oroville know better. They have seen what happens when this infrastructure fails. They remember the chaos of 2017. The sirens, the gridlocked highways, the children separated from parents. They are not waiting for official statements this time. They are packing their cars and watching the waterline creep higher with each passing hour. The question becomes unavoidable. Is this a natural miracle that could end California's drought forever? A gift from deep within the earth that no one expected? Or is Lake Oroville sitting on top of something about to crack wide open? Something that will make the 2017 evacuation look like a rehearsal. Nature always finds a way to remind us who is really in charge. Usually right at the moment, we feel most confident in our control. The lake is telling us something is wrong. The concrete is singing its warning. The question is not whether we will listen. The question is whether we will listen in time.